4.7. It's on constructions. Okay. One thing with constructions is they are usually more accurate. Okay. If you can get your compass so it doesn't move on you, okay, get it tight. These are usually, so the compass and straight edge, okay, are the most accurate. You can make a little bit of mistake and it won't come out to be as much as when you use a protractor and a measuring device. Okay, so this is where we're more inaccurate. So that's why when you're trying to do something very accurate, you would use a protractor and or a compass and a straight edge. Back when we didn't have computers to help us, people had to do things and they would use the compass and straight edge to make different pieces of pipe or ducting or whatever they were looking to make. They had to do it with big compasses and straight edge because it was more accurate than them trying to use a protractor or a measure. Now in these days, we have computers. We can send out laser beams and we can make them very accurate. It can measure the angle in between. It can measure all that stuff for you. So you don't have to use these as much. But it's just it's things that have been taught kind of as a history thing. This is how they used to have to do it. So it's kind of like, okay, here's what we had to do. But nowadays we don't use it a lot just because we have computers and machines that can accurately measure these things for us. Okay, so let's just look. This is all about copying. Okay, it's not really it's constructing, but it's copying things that we go through. So I'm just going to show you how to do it with both. So the first one is doing I think it's a line segment, but let me make sure. I always have to make sure what I'm doing here. Lesson 2, that's not it. Lesson 7, that's not it. Wait, here we go. We're not in, that's chapter 6. Okay, we're in chapter 4. Got to get to the right place. Okay, so yeah, that's 3. Okay, let's see what is construction 1. To bisect a line segment. Okay, when you're bisecting a line segment, we've already done this. You should already have it, so we've known how to do it, but I'll just review it. So if you have a line segment, you take your protractor and you put the point here and the pencil here to measure that distance. So you measure it by opening your protractor up, okay, and then you put it that distance, and then you take it and you make basically an arc this way and an arc that way. And you can just do it up above and down below, okay, that's a very inaccurate thing. Then you take it and you switch. So now we switch these. Okay, so you switch and you take it and mark it again. So you mark it here, and then when you draw the straight line, it will be the bisector. It is also the perpendicular bisector. Okay, so to bisect something, it's basically measuring the distance with your compass. Okay, that's the first thing. Second thing is to make a swipe or an arc of below and above. Okay. Then you do switch the compass around. Make the arc above and below. Oh yeah, I'll say above and below this time. It's different. Okay, and then you draw your line between those 2 points where they intersect. So the fifth thing is connect intersections. Connect, can't spell, intersections. And what that actually gives you is the perpendicular bisector. So here's A and B. So you get the perpendicular bisector, which means it's also the midpoint. Where it crosses the line is also the midpoint. So you get all those things. You know that these are right triangles. You know that these are equal to each other. And so those are the things that you get when you're doing that. Okay, so that's a review. Now, if we did it with our pencil, our protractor and measure, we'd actually only use, so B would be to use just the ruler, and you measure probably to the nearest, if you can, millimeter, because that will be more accurate. Okay, divide it in half. Divide length in half to find the midpoint. Now, that does not give you a perpendicular, it just cuts the angle or the line in half. Okay, so that's something we can do both ways. Again, this has more room for error because if you don't measure it accurately to the nearest millimeter and you cut it in half incorrectly, it won't be the same. This has errors though. If your protractor, or your compass, I used to have terrible problems with the compass I had. My compass was not good at, like I couldn't get it tight so it would stay that exact length. And so when I was drawing at times, it would stretch out or do things. And so I get some inaccuracies there. So really, this one depends on your actual tools you're using because the tools themselves can cause errors. The compass can cause errors if it's not a good compass. This one is using more your measurements and your division ability and that kind of stuff to get the half. Okay, so there's errors in both ways, but this, if you have a good compass, it will be the most accurate. And it gives you a perpendicular bisector, which you do not get with a ruler. Okay, so those are kind of just the review of what we've done up to this point, or one of the things we've done up to this point. The other ones were, and I'm not going to review all these, you've done them, is bisecting an angle. And that was where on an angle, you measure up with your protractor a distance and make that same distance over here. So you just set your protractor out, go the same distance, then just go from each of these points and mark things like that to get your perpendicular bisector. But this has to be the same size as this, okay? This can be the same size or you can make it longer, it will still intersect. And so that's the thing you have to get to do a bisector, angle bisection, okay? We've gone through that before, so that's something we already know. Okay. Now this is where it gets redundant. Okay, so our new constructions. Copy a line segment. Okay, so here, with a compass, you measure the distance from one endpoint to the other. Basically what you're doing, if you have a line segment, let's say it's AB, you put your point here, you put your pencil here, and that is the distance. When you open up the compass, that's the distance. Okay, so that will give you this distance between here and here, because the point is here and the pencil's here. We draw a point down here, we put the pointy end of our compass on that. We go out and put our pencil out here and connect those, and now you have a copy. Okay, so it's just, you're not using the straight edges only to draw the line. Okay, so what you're doing is you have the point, you put the point there, the pencil end down here, and then you go to another point and measure that same distance. So these will be identical. And so you've copied a line segment. Whoopee. Oh. Okay. Now, if you're doing it by a protractor or ruler, I'm just going to say ruler. Well, let's see. We would measure from A to B and draw a line. So we would measure. We would put A down as a point, and we would measure that same distance to get to B, and so that these would be the same. Okay? I think we all know how to copy a line segment with a ruler, hopefully. You measure it, you put the point down, put it, connect it together, so now you have the same. So this is how you do it with the compass. It's sometimes more accurate, usually more accurate if you have it really set so it doesn't ever move. Then you draw it out, it will be identical. If you measure it, you might be a millimeter, centimeter off. Okay, and I'll just say, because people don't measure correctly, it's hard to keep everything right where it needs to be. Okay, so that's kind of hard. So that's the only thing we're looking at there. The next one is copying an angle. These are always fun to me. So first you have to, let's say we have this angle here. Okay, this is going to be A, this is going to be B, this is going to be C. Okay. So the first thing you do is you're going to figure out a distance from A to C. So we're going to start with our point A. So number one, you start with point A. Okay. Number two, you're going to measure up this distance. So you're measuring AC, and you're going with your protractor, or with the compass. Measure AC. Okay. Draw that line segment over here. So basically you're just copying a line segment like we kind of did before. So I want to then copy AC to here. All right. Then what you're doing is you're going to, okay. So then what you're going to do is next you're going to draw a curve at that spot, okay? So you're going to draw a curve up like that. That's the same distance. You make an arc. So this is 2, 3, you make an arc. Okay. With that, and then what you're going to do is on this graph, you're going to take and measure from B to C. Okay, so we want to measure the distance here. Compass. measure B to C. And what you're going to do is on that arc, you're going to take C and you're going to come there and you're going to strike it up here. So you're going to put the pencil. So our fourth thing is to measure BC, and we're going to strike that distance on your arc. Okay, then you connect these points and it should be an exact replica. Okay, that's how that works. So the fifth thing is to connect A with intersection. And that gives you your exact copy. Okay. So this was 1. This is part of 4. Okay. So basically that's how you do that. Okay. I'm going to have you practice these in just a little bit. Okay. You can try it now if you want to. So how would we do it with a protractor? If you have your angle like this, you must get your 0 right there, and this is going to go to 0. This is that origin part that you have to get right on the center of your vertex. This is where the mistakes come because most of you have bigger circles than your circle that you have, and so you don't measure it accurately. But then you get the 0 degrees over here, and then you measure this distance with your protractor. So maybe this is 75 degrees. So you find the measure on protractor. And then you have to just put a little dot when you get that measure and then connect that side with the straight edge.
I did it.
Okay, good. Okay, so that's something you can do. So those are all just ways of doing that. Okay. Now the next one's a little bit harder to do just with you can do it. A triangle is harder to do with the actual protractor. So that was an angle. The next one is how do we copy a triangle? So this is copy a triangle. Okay, so here I'm given this triangle. We're going to pretend those are not, it's not isosceles. Okay, so the first thing you do is you're going to measure this with your protractor. That's 1. You put a point here and you draw that length over here. So we could call this B prime, C prime. The prime means we've moved it. Okay, it's just been moved. Okay, this represents the B in that one. This represents the C in that one. It's just been moved. That's what prime means when you put a little line up by it. That's called B prime and A prime or C prime. Okay, so 2, draw your segment. Okay, so that's the first thing that you do. The second thing that you do, let's see, we said that to the length of BC. Oh, yes, okay. Length AC, okay. So what you're going to do is you're going to go from, did I label this correctly? No, I didn't. Okay. So what the next thing you want to do then is measure this side. and you're gonna go out here from this, so 4, you're gonna copy that, but we're not just gonna, we have to put an arc of where that can land, because we don't know exactly where it's gonna land yet. So what we're gonna do is measure an arc out with same distance. Oops. Of 3. Okay, so basically you'll get your arc out here, so we know it's going to be somewhere out there that our side's going to come, because it's coming through one of these arcs right there. Okay, so then the next thing you're going to do, 5, is you're going to measure this with the protractor. Last side with the protractor. Okay. And again, you're going to do it from here. So we're going to measure from C, and we're measuring out here that distance. So then you're measuring, measure an arc out with same distance as 5, step 5, and then you can connect that point, and that gives you your triangle. Okay? So once you find that point, you can, so basically you're measuring each side. So you measure this one and make a line. I can't measure this one right away and get the line. I have to make an arc, but then I measure this side and get an arc, and that tells me where they connect. Okay? Much easier than trying to measure these angles. So if you're doing it with a protractor, you have to do a series of measures. So you would put one line down, measure that line, then you would take this angle and measure the angle. So 1, you would draw similar line or same length line. So BC. Okay. Then what you're going to have to do is measure with your protractor up here and find a area where it goes. Okay. So you measure up to find your angle. So you would print the angle out here, just as far as you need it to go. Okay. So you would measure this angle. This is step 2. Measure angle B with protractor. Draw on the new line. And then what you would do is measure the length here. So you would measure BA. So our third thing would be to measure BA and mark on this line. That will give you your third point, so now you can connect them. Okay, so you really just measure the angle. So this is doing side, angle, side. When we do it with the protractor, we're doing side, 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 because we're doing length of all 3 sides. We're doing it with not protractor, a compass, we're doing length of 3 sides to make it congruent. Doing with a protractor, we're doing a side, an angle, and a side, and getting those 2 correct. Okay, so that's basically how you construct those. Now, am I going to ask you to do a lot of that? No. But if I do ask you, if you can't measure well with your protractor, you might want to learn how to do this construction so you always get it right. Okay, but that's not the part I want you to know. I want you to know that basically the angle side angle is what is proving this one. That's why we can do that. This is the side, 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 which are those congruent things that we've used before. Okay. So we're gonna go ahead and give you a break right now before you come back.